Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be with you on Turner TV tonight. You could be anywhere, but I'm glad that you are here with us. And yes, we are going to be talking about a very timely subject. Not just we're going to talk about the Green New Deal, but we're gonna go further than that and talk about the environment itself, climate change, environmental justice, and the Green New Deal, and the impact that it has on communities. And we're going to try very much to center the greater Cleveland community, but it's kind of hard just to center one community on this because in order to tackle and to deal with climate chaos and the injustices within the environment when it comes to environmental racism and injustice, that we got to do this as a nation and also as a world. So it's not just one area. And do I have some of the best experts that I could ever have with me? I have on one hand the councilman of the great city of Lakewood, Councilman Tristan Rader, has been doing a lot of fantastic things when it comes to the environment and climate justice on the local level of government, which is a great place for us to start. And then I have advocate and subject matter expert Wes Gobar, and he is going to talk to us about the state of the climate, environmental justice or injustice, if you will, depending on how you want to look at it from a global standpoint. So it is so good to be here tonight on a Wednesday evening with both of you. How you feeling tonight?
Wonderful. Glad to be here with you. Thank you for inviting us, Senator.
I
Very
feel I feel great. Feel energized. Ready to talk about some clean energy.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So, Councilman, I want to start with you. You're local, and what would make a local councilman dig in on climate, climate justice, if you will, in a way that you have.
Well, I think it really comes down to we have to do our part and at every level, right? And especially in places like Ohio, where our state legislature and sometimes even our federal government misses the mark, and we need to step up as locals and lead. The Green New Deal has to start somewhere, and right now it's starting on the local level, passing things like what we've done here in Lakewood, 100% commitment to clean energy, getting solar on all of our city buildings, helping our residents go solar through different avenues and means. It goes to bike infrastructure, our wet weather improvement, our sewer infrastructure is also a really big part of that. And that's where this federal government could step up. And I think the Green New Deal could really be huge for a place like Lakewood, is to help us modernize our under the ground sewer and water systems.
Yeah, a lot of that. And especially for older cities, which we have a lot of older cities in Ohio, that infrastructure is not strong enough to deal with the 21st century needs. So yeah, it's really good.
Well, I'll tell you too, Senator, where it really impacts people is when we have to go in and replace our 100-year, like you mentioned, ancient infrastructure underground. We have to do that through raising water rates, right? And that's going to impact everybody. That in fact, the people most hurt by that are the people that their portion of their budget is, that water bill is actually a pretty significant portion of what they pay every month, right? What they make every month. So if we have to raise somebody's water rate by 5 or 10%, which we had to plan to do, very unfortunate thing, but that's historically where the money comes from to make these improvements. If we had something like a Green New Deal, you would actually see folks in all parts of the city, in Cleveland and Lakewood, shouldering less of that burden and able to use their income on things that are more important, like healthcare or getting to work.
Yeah, or we could just have universal health care and put that money in a community pot. Dr. Gobar, I want to pull you in here. Just talking to the councilman and thinking about the intersectionality of housing, jobs, racial justice, environmental justice. All of those things really go together. And when we talk about like climate chaos or environmental justice, a lot of times this is very much labeled as a progressive agenda, and it is a progressive agenda. But what would you say? How would you encourage others who may or may not label themselves as progressives that they should, in fact, care about what is happening in the environment overall?
Yeah, I think climate very much is seen as a progressive issue, but at the other end, there's decades of propaganda from the fossil fuel industry making us think it's a zero sum game, that people have to sacrifice and to recycle And what we really need is a positive vision for acting on climate that benefits all of us. True climate justice, a Green New Deal, all that means that no one will be left behind. Black and brown communities won't be left behind, and fossil fuel workers won't be left behind. And, the Bernie campaign, y'all had a great slogan, are you willing to fight for someone you don't know? And with climate, we're fighting for people you don't know, fighting for future generations, you're fighting for people in the global south, but you're also fighting, as Tristan so well said, your own energy bills, your own water bills, like having clean air. And good jobs, good union jobs, all about our quality of life. It's improving the quality of life from the people who've, in so many ways, it's just, if you look at the reconciliation bill that passed last year, not many people know this, but there was a civilian climate corps in that bill, which would have been a huge boon for young people who have been pushed out of this economy and, told they have to take on mountains of debt to get a good job, a good career. And this would be a jobs program that would give people good pathways to union jobs and careers, fighting the climate crisis, making their communities better, safer, more livable. And that's also open for people who are formerly incarcerated and wouldn't be able to fight fires in California, or people of different documentation status. And so that's even the seed of a Green New Deal and something that's going through Congress right now. But there's so many other ways that climate policies can create good union jobs and help people. Clean energy is literally cheaper, but if you have solar on your roof or you share distributed energy with your community, then it's almost free, right? And public transit is a much cheaper option than these rising gas prices, right? And so we need to make that accessible to everyone. So we need to establish the stakes of the climate crisis, but I think we need to balance that doom with all the opportunity there is in your own communities to make it better, safer, healthier, and more livable places.
Yeah, I love, Doc, how you frame that, establish the stakes, but also look at the opportunities, because there is promise in the problem if we see it and we're willing to tackle it. So, Doc, I want to go to, on the campaign trail in 2020, the president promised that his administration would direct 40% of the benefits from climate and clean energy related investments towards communities that have been historically marginalized and overburdened by pollution. This promise led to the Justice 40 initiative. And I've heard you say this is a well-intentioned policy, Doc. You've talked a lot about this policy, well-intentioned, but that the program omits race from the list of factors for where to direct the funds. Can we go a little deeper in that and you talk about it a little more? I'm not sure that many people know about the Justice 40 initiative, and why do you believe that we need to go deeper on the racial side, the racial component of this type of initiative?
I really want to be clear here. We can't allow Justice 40 just to become another broken promise, like 40 acres and a mule.
Mm.
The current version that the Biden administration is using is not final. So there's still time for them to reverse course if enough of us raise our voices over the next month. And so let me just talk about what Justice 40 is and why that's important. This came out of a lot of organizing in states like New York, where they got a similar commitment for any climate spending and climate-related environmental spending to go towards disadvantaged communities using a bunch of different factors, but also race. And the thing is, this will determine how the flow of federal dollars for the next decade. They've already passed this bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is not a climate bill. It funds a lot of really bad stuff, but there's also a lot of other trillions, hundreds of billions of dollars that's going towards things we need to make sure that the right people benefit from, like clean energy and transportation. And the thing is, we've known since 1987, dating back to a seminal report, that race is the biggest predictor of pollution in the community, not income, not education, it's race. And all of this really dates back to segregation, to redlining in this country. If you lived in a formerly redlined community, you are more likely to face extreme heat. Your community is 5 degrees hotter because you don't have tree cover, you have concrete. Your energy bills are higher because you're more likely to live in an older home that's energy inefficient. You have highways that have intersected your community, right? And so that's air pollution. And air pollution from fossil fuels is really, I don't think people know this, but it caused 1 out of every 5 deaths, American deaths in 2018, but for COVID. And most of those are Black and brown people, right? And these are all things we need to invest to reverse, but also all the great stuff I talked about of the benefits of investing in a just clean energy economy and renewables. These are things that we need to make sure that the right communities benefit from, the ones that have been hurt the most from our fossil fuel system. And this is also, again, an important seed for a Green New Deal, because this is a way to have a just distribution of funds to make sure that the right people are owning and operating this. So just to put in a plug, the Biden administration, the metric they're using to consider Justice 40, as you said, does not include race, and it needs to include race. They have a month where they're considering public comments. If this is important to you, I would go to bit.ly/CQJ40. And and you can, from there, we have a tool where you can submit a comment to the Biden administration as to why this is important. They're considering this for another month.
Yeah, please get involved. Doc, can you give us that again? And hopefully Ryan can put it on our scroll at the bottom.
Yes, bit.ly/CQJ40. And Nina, I also want to be clear, I'm not a doctor. I'm very flattered that maybe one day, but
in the future, I'm calling things that are not as though they were. So let's just
thank you.
Yeah. Oh my God. So Cleveland has the 6th highest rate of asthma, in America. To your point about that, the suffering within the climate chaos that we're facing right now, everybody is impacted by it. But again, you have disproportionality among Black and brown communities, and then poor communities all over. And, I never thought about this, but I was talking to one of my colleagues a while ago, and now I look at what I'm about to say, through different eyes. But just, even driving down the street of my community, I live in the Lee Harvard area in Cleveland, and you can tell when you get to a community that is more affluent because they have more trees. I mean, think about that. I don't know if people really think about it in that way, but the trees are bigger, and they're touching the canopy, they're touching, the treetops are touching, and it really is a sign of where affluence is, and more comfortable living is the amount of trees and or concrete in a community. Are there parks? Are there walkable areas? That kind of thing. So that's really something to think about. So I'm so glad that you're laying this down for us. And folks, we got it scrolling down there. If you care about this, you should definitely care about this and make it known. And I love what you just said, that we cannot allow this to be a broken promise, because it is too important. We must get involved and do something about it. And it's all of our responsibilities to do that. Councilman, so Lakewood has committed, you mentioned this earlier when we started, Lakewood committed to using 100% clean renewable energy in the city, in city facilities by 2025, as well as going community-wide by 2035. You recently introduced a resolution for Lakewood to become a Soul Smart designated community, which will directly benefit residential solar use. Can you talk about why proposals like this would improve our communities and make renewables affordable and more accessible? And again, why? Why are you doing this? All the issues you could be talking about and fighting for, you chose to be in the climate justice space, the energy space. Why?
Well, I mean, clearly we don't have a planet, and we don't have anywhere to do the work that we need to do in the future for everything else. And I mean, going back to kind of Wes's point, like there's been these transitions. We've, had the Industrial Revolution. We've had all these transitions of our economy throughout the years, right? And it's been great for one section of people, right? But it's not been great for everybody. Every single time we've had one of these great transitions, it's left out a significant swath of people. It's left out folks that were not deemed as worthy of being the ownership class. And frankly, those people are often Black and brown people, right? Especially here in this country. So we have this historic opportunity to make this transition like truly equitable, not just, and actually look at race. And I'm really glad that you brought the J40 stuff to the front here, Wes, and I'm happy to share this link as well with my networks. I think that's just crucial. It's critical. If we don't do this together, then, the people that are bearing the highest cost for our environmental problems right now are the folks that can least afford it. And that's true certainly in the Cleveland area, where literally we're also one of the highest energy burdened communities in the entire country, right? Where people in Cleveland pay the highest percentage of their income towards utilities. The answer is clear. It's renewable energy, right? We can actually add renewable energy to the grid, and we can actually help that everybody have an ownership stake in that, right? So that transition to clean energy is actually owned by folks. And that's what this community solar is about. That's what helping people put solar on their roofs and actually participate, own, and giving them paths to that. But we need, I'll keep going back to this because this is really where we need to send Nina to Congress, right? I don't know if this is specific. Yes, you need it for Congress. This is specifically about Congress. I'm wearing so many hats. I'm going between 503, government, politics. So we need to send her to Congress because we need to shake this stuff loose. If we don't have resources to fund these programs, then we are kind of competing with ourselves to figure out how we fund good things that actually help these equitable transitions happen and help the green economy grow. So without the federal government as a partner, and honestly, they haven't been a great partner, right? That's what we're talking about. So to have people in Congress that are willing to fight to make the federal government a great partner with cities, with the community in general, I think is absolutely critical to making this transition happen at a rate that it needs to happen. So that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you for that and your leadership there, and hopefully other cities will take the lead of Lakewood and go deeper. And because we have to tackle this as a community, as a nation, and my God, really as a world. I was talking to a gentleman today during call time, and he's a big climate justice activist, and he said something that really got me to thinking. He said, Earth is going to outlast us. She has for thousands of years. She will outlast us. It is us that need to make the corrections and do the right thing for us, like for humankind and the entire ecosystem. And nobody had quite put it to me that way, but I've been thinking about what he had to say all day, and that is so true. Mother Earth is going to outlast us. The question becomes, are we going to do what is right for the species and for the ecosystem that depends on us to do the right thing? And when you think about it that way, it is very, it was kind of like, yes, you're absolutely right about that. And I think when people are in survival mode all the time, it is really kind of hard to really think about this topic as we're thinking about it and as we're talking about it, because their first thing, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it is the physiological needs first. But there is a connection between all of the things that we're talking about: the housing, the jobs, the racial justice or injustice, economic justice. All of those things go together, and they're tied to what is happening to Mother Earth right now. So, the science is clear that if we do not take drastic action, the damage we are doing to Mother Earth will be irreparable. We are at a historic crossroads, and we have an obligation, an unprecedented opportunity to act boldly. What is at stake? Just very simply for Big Mama and Big Daddy, what's at stake if we do not act and act with, to quote Dr. King on another issue, the fierce urgency of right now? And Wes, you can take it, and then the councilman can jump in.
Right. I very much on the same wavelength as you, because what you said before, this isn't about Mother Earth, this is about us. And to also paraphrase Dr. King, the choice between us right now is between environmental justice or extinction. And we are a warming world right now. We're going to lock in. You're going to see tens of millions of climate refugees within the United States alone, and the people at the border are already climate refugees. We're seeing wildfires and pyronados in California. Pyronados, literally tornadoes of fire, right, in the West Coast. And the thing is, though, that I wouldn't even say it's completely accurate that it's extinction, because the wealthy and the corporations already have plans to survive. They are planning for climate change. They're investing in climate change. They're building out ways to keep having fossil fuel infrastructure without putting out carbon emissions, but it will still poison our communities. The private sector is active. They're putting billions into adaptation plans that create new climate red lines and climate gentrification. So money is being poured into climate. And the question is, will it be done by the federal government or by the corporations? Will it benefit those who benefit from the current system, or be in by and for the workers in Black and brown communities? And Tristan, I'm really glad you brought up the transitions in US history, because again, the Great Depression, Reconstruction, Industrial Revolution, these were all times where vast amounts of money went into our economy during huge transitions and upturns in our society. And those investments fundamentally locked in new forms of inequity. They locked in new racial hierarchies, new economic hierarchies. And that cannot be what happens with the climate crisis. So we have little danger from natural disasters. The heat waves that killed hundreds of people in the US alone already, air pollution that's already killing folks, floods, hurricanes that are killing people in the South. But these investments they will either lock in oppression or prosperity for the next few decades. And so the choice before us is, again, environmental justice or extinction. And we need to make sure that we flex our people power and elect people like Senator Turner to Congress to get some real climate solutions that benefit people.
Amen. And to deal like this, I had a boss that I worked for, and he would say, if your hair is on fire, you have to act like your hair is on fire. Well, literally, our hair is on fire. The earth is on fire, and we need to do something about it. And when you talk about those push and pull factors, when we look, even this is tied to immigration too, how people have to move, not because they want to, but because they have to. Their very survival is at stake. So whether it's the famine or the wildfires, pestilence, not being able to grow crops, this is real. This is not science fiction here. This is real. And for so often, the power brokers, Wes, that you just named, see, they got a way out. They're going to just go to space and mess that up there too. But they're going to leave the rest of us down here to tend to the mess that they created. And this is serious business. It's also making me think of the film that dear friend of mine was a part of writing, and that's David Sirota, and it's Don't Look Up. It was real. It is real. That is real, and that is right now. Why do either of you think that it is so hard to get political people to act on this as if our lives depend on it? Really, it boggles my mind that we're not listening to the scientists. We criticize, who are Democrats, certainly criticize the Republicans for not believing the science as well. We should. But the way we're comporting ourselves as Democrats, like globally, says to me, we don't believe the science either, because we're not acting with the first urgency. And now, Councilman, you want to jump in there on that one? Why do you think the political class is just acting like we got another 20 years to deal with this?
Two reasons. One, we're just going to do it the way we've always done it. So we're just going to do it the way we've always done it, right? It's just easier. It's expedient. Secondly, at least here in Ohio, the fossil fuel lobbies are the strongest lobbies that exist. You don't go against the utility lobbies, right? We're seeing, still in the middle of the largest scandal in state history, the largest bribery scheme ever perpetrated on the people of Ohio, perpetrated by a investor-owned utility, First Energy, right? Who were named in the lawsuit. So this is not, and yet still they're going to come out of it unscathed. It's seeming, right? It's the money they have, the stranglehold they have on the political class. It further illustrates to me that we need folks that are unbought in the system and that are not beholden. It's the only way we're going to be able to make the change is by getting away from those corrupt entities.
Yeah, unbought and unbossed, to quote the great Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. And even right now in our district, we know that those entities that we are talking about have poured millions of dollars into this race that I'm in right now. We have an oil baroness that is funding a super PAC, DMFI, right now, and they're pouring $1 million of that money into this race. And then we have a crypto billionaire has just decided, well, the 11th congressional district, let me throw $1 million into that as well. And then we have some, other PACs that are related to the more status quo type Democrats, trying to preserve the status quo, and the status quo is not working. So when we think about systemic failure and why we cannot have nice things, why do you think that oil baroness is in this race? Oh, because Sister Turner believes in a Green New Deal and to deal with climate injustice, to turn the scales. What can people really do right now who are feeling overwhelmed, Wes, to make the change?
Yeah, y'all brought up some really great points, and thank you, Senator Turner. I think the thing is that I think you need to get organized, right? You brought up so many great facts about what's happening in Cleveland, and people think about this as well. What is Congress going to do, or what's happening with Biden administration? But does your city council have a plan to get to 100% renewable energy? What does your state rep think, right? Have you organized on that level? So I think it's getting together with smaller groups of people. It's that energy even that we saw during the so quote unquote resistance in 2017, when people were joining indivisibles and calling. I think we need to get organized on a smaller level and build power at the state and city level. And there are institutions within the Democratic Party, whether it's your local party that makes some of these decisions, or whether it's your elected officials, that they just aren't used to thinking about solving big problems. And so we need to take over, start your own organizations, take over organizations that are that have people power but aren't doing enough on climate, or that are in the Democratic Party that aren't doing enough on climate and don't have a forward vision. So I think we need to get organized, and once we start to build power at this this local level, the municipal level, we'll be able to have constituencies for climate at the federal level, at even greater scale. If you look at DC, we now have a city council candidate who is running on having a CCC in DC. And we have another great city council candidate who's running for re-election that has put up for a Green New Deal for public housing. And these are things that we can do and scale up. And I think, Senator Turner, you hit it on the nail on the head. It is, and Tristan, you hit on the nail on the head. It's about money. To go back to the federal level, if you look at Joe Manchin and the bipartisan deal that the Republicans came up with, we literally have Exxon on tape talking about how they bought a lot of these senators and were able to split President Biden's priorities. He wanted to do the $2.5 trillion, and they lost all their leverage. So we're not too late at that point for Congress. We can still move the needle there and get some of these climate investments across the finish line. But it's money, and we need more state and local people power. We've moved from a point of where the big money is funding denial to where they're funding delay. And so the people will talk about climate, but they don't have the plans to back up to do something at scale on climate.
Yeah, so true. You are preaching the gospel of truth tonight. Councilman, final thoughts about this and how people can get involved?
Well, I think obviously there's one clear thing you can do on May 3rd if you live in the 11th district, or the current 11th district, which is Cleveland, the west side of Cuyahoga, east side of Cuyahoga County, and Lakewood. Please, we need fighters in Congress. And if you don't live in the district, give some money. I'm not here because, I'm friends with Nina, right? I'm not here because I like the way Nina dresses. That's not enough. Though I like those two things. She's great. I love the way not a good enough reason for me to be putting my time aside to be doing this. I'm doing this because our planet, we need a fighter in Congress and others like her, right? And to Wes's point, city council candidates in New York and everywhere who are willing to do some things that we've done here and beyond to really fight for climate justice. It's really not so much, I think this revolution's happening. Clean energy is happening. We have the opportunity to select who's going to benefit from it, right? Who's really going to be the owners of this next transition? Who's going to be carried along with it or left behind? That is really, this is the critical moment where that decision gets to be made. And we don't do it unless we send people like Nina to Congress, frankly.
And I feel bad for not putting in that extra plug. So I just really want to say, as I've been closely following, again, the trying to get hundreds of billions of dollars in climate across the finish line with Congress, it is progressive members who held that down, who were actually fighting for the climate agenda, and at every turn fought against those attempts to try to delay, to try to split up the Democratic Party's priorities. And we need more, because we just didn't have enough. And so we need Nina Turner in Congress, because we need people actually holding the Democratic Party and their leadership accountable to fight for our futures.
Well, thank you, Wes, so much. And Tristan, thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. This is serious business. We all need to be a climate justice activist, because we only have one Mother Earth, and she will outlast us all. This really is about the survival of our species and the other ecosystems that depend on us. And part of what we can do, besides joining organizations, agitating, standing up for what is just, right, and good, as my colleagues have said, we got a race on May the 3rd, and you can join in too. If you live here, please go and vote. If you do not live in the greater Cleveland area, you can participate by your time, your talent, and your treasure, all three or one of the above, but definitely get involved. I do want you to ask yourself a very important question. Why would an oil baroness invest in this race? Aha. Why would people, multi-millionaires and billionaires who do not live in this district, who do not care about the livelihoods of those who work, play, love, laugh, and fight here, why would they put that kind of money into this race? The answer is that certain politicians are for sale. And we need to be very, very clear in Greater Cleveland that we are not for sale. And if we stand up to these entities here, we empower and give courage to other communities who are facing the same things. These types of people, this type of power is coming to a neighborhood near you, and they are trying to drown out our voices. And when they are able to do that, then those nice things, those things that we all deserve, clean air, clean food, clean water, a viable, habitable earth, people not having to be pushed and pulled from where they live. And you know what, Tristan, we were talking about the push and pull factors, and I was primarily thinking about the immigrant community, but push and pull factors happening right here in the United States of America. This is not just about what is happening over there. This is also about what is happening over here. And we need more leaders, both elected and activist types. We do need more leaders, even in the corporate space, who will be willing to stand up and say that the way that the system is working is untenable, that it is not working. We need people in the faith community, in the civic community. There is enough work for all of us to do. And if there's ever one single very important thing that we can unite on, it must be this thing right here. Climate chaos kills and it steals. We must be that change that we want to see in the world. All right. I am so happy that both of you were here with me tonight. We're going to do this again, because this is something that we got to keep driving home, because we need every community to care about this, to be made aware of this, and actually be willing to fight the forces that do not want us to have nice things, including saving Mother Earth for us. All right. Good night, everybody. Please keep the faith, keep the fight. Go to ninaturner.com, baby. Do this thing. We ain't got but a few days left. The fight continues.